The night a single mother asked a billionaire for help buying food for her little girl, none of them imagined how much it would change their lives. Rain hammered the mansion's tall windows in relentless sheets. Under the stone awning by the front door, two small figures huddled, soaked and shivering. Diana squeezed her daughter's icy hand and drew in a breath that hurt. Now or never. She had rehearsed the same line the entire way there, step after wet step, each cold drop on her face repeating it in her mind. I need to buy food for my daughter. Plain. Direct. True. Knock. 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 The sound echoed somewhere deep inside. Diana counted the seconds in her head. Zoe clung to her leg, blonde hair plastered to her pale little face. Mommy, I'm scared, the 5-year-old whispered. I know, sweetheart. But it's going to be okay, Diana lied. She didn't know if anything would be okay. She only knew her daughter couldn't spend one more night hungry. Heavy footsteps approached. A light flicked on in the entryway. Diana squared her shoulders, trying to look calmer than she felt. The door swung open. A tall man filled the doorway. Dark hair rumpled as if he had just rolled out of bed. Gray eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. A simple t-shirt and jeans that somehow screamed money anyway. Julian Cross frowned at the two drenched strangers on his doorstep, irritation and surprise warring on his face. It's almost midnight, he said, voice rough. Diana's prepared speech vanished. Every word she had repeated on the walkover dissolved. She looked down at Zoe, shaking lips bluish, clothes soaked through, worn shoes squelching, and suddenly the line returned, sharp and necessary. She lifted her chin and met Julian's gray eyes. I need to buy food for my daughter, she said slowly, each word weighted with urgency. Not a plea for charity. A statement of fact from a mother doing what she had to do. Julian's brows drew together. Buy, he started to say gruffly, as if to send them away. I have money, Diana blurted, fumbling in her wet pocket. She pulled out a few crumpled bills. Not much, but it's all I've got. I just need somewhere that's open. The stores are all closed and... She broke off. Zoe had edged a step forward, light blue eyes fixed on Julian with ruthless childlike honesty. Mister. The little voice cut through the rain and tension. Something clenched in Julian's chest. I'm hungry. 3 quiet words. No drama, no manipulation. Just simple truth from a child who didn't know how to lie. Julian looked at her properly. Too thin for 5. Blonde hair stuck to her forehead by the rain. Secondhand clothes but clean. Those wide, trusting eyes looking at him as if he could fix everything.
Mister, I'm hungry.
The words echoed inside him. No one had asked him for anything real in years. No one had needed him for anything but signatures and decisions. And here was a soaked, hungry 5-year-old staring at him as if he might be a hero. Where did you come from? He asked. The shelter, Diana answered. They said they couldn't keep us any longer. We left this morning. And you walked here? Yes. He glanced past them at the dark, empty street. The rain was still coming down hard. And where are you spending the night? Diana hesitated. We'll figure something out. I need to buy food for my daughter, she'd said. Mister, I'm hungry, Zoe had added. Julian stood there a long moment, silent. He could just close the door. That's what he always did. Don't get involved. Don't care. Don't let anyone in. But the little girl kept looking at him with that unguarded trust. He exhaled, defeated. Come in. Diana blinked. What? Come in. You're soaked. He stepped back, leaving room for them. Diana wavered. She didn't know this man, but Zoe was shivering and the storm wasn't letting up. Thank you, she murmured, gently nudging Zoe inside. The entrance hall was enormous. Marble floors, paintings on the walls, a sweeping staircase leading to the 2nd floor. Zoe stared, mouth slightly open. Leave your shoes there, Julian said. I'll get towels. He disappeared down a hallway, leaving them alone. Mommy, what a big house, Zoe whispered. I know, baby. But remember, we're guests, Zoe finished. Julian returned with 2 thick towels. He handed one to Diana and crouched to drape the other around Zoe's shoulders. Better? He asked. The little girl nodded, pulling the towel up to her chin. Come on. Kitchen's this way. They followed him down a corridor into a sleek, spotless kitchen. Julian opened the refrigerator and started pulling out ingredients. Sit, he said, nodding at the table. Diana pulled out a chair for Zoe, then sat. She watched Julian move with brisk efficiency. You cook? She asked. When I have to. He set a pot on the stove and began chopping vegetables, movements precise, almost mechanical. What's your name? Zoe asked. Julian glanced back. Julian.
I'm Zoe.
And this is my mommy, Diana.
Zoe. Diana.
It felt strange hearing their names in his voice. Do you live alone in this huge house? Zoe continued. Zoe, Diana warned. Don't be nosy. It's fine, Julian said. Yes, I live alone. It must be really lonely. His hand paused a fraction over the pot. Sometimes. Why don't you have a family? Zoe began. Zoe, Diana hissed, mortified. It's all right, Julian said quietly. I had one. A long time ago. And what happened? Zoe persisted. They left. Diana felt a pinch in her chest. There was real pain in his voice. The smell of soup began to fill the kitchen. Diana's stomach growled loudly. Heat rushed to her face. Sorry, she muttered. When did you two last eat? Julian asked. She hesitated. Last night. At the shelter. He nodded and said nothing more, but his hands moved faster. 15 minutes later he set 2 steaming bowls in front of them. Vegetable soup with generous hunks of potato and carrot. He added a basket of fresh bread and butter, then leaned against the counter, arms folded. Eat, he said. Then more brusquely. Then you'll leave. The words came out rough. Doing something decent felt dangerous. Diana looked at him, then at the food. She remembered standing at his doorway in the rain. I need to pay, she began. Forget the money, he cut in. She picked up the spoon and took a sip. The soup was hot and perfectly seasoned, warmth spreading through her cold body. Zoe fell on hers with desperate hunger, spilling a little on her shirt. Slowly, sweetheart, Diana murmured, wiping her chin. Julian watched them in silence. Something in the way Diana hovered over the child tugged at memories he preferred to bury. Is it good? He asked. It's wonderful, Diana said. You cook very well. Zoe nodded vigorously. Very yummy, Mr. Julian. Mr. Julian. No one had ever called him that. It sounded odd on his ears. They ate in a quiet that felt almost comfortable. When the bowls were empty, Julian refilled them. He watched Zoe's face finally relax into a real smile. Thank you, Diana said when she finished. For the food. For letting us in. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't have to help us. He didn't answer. He was watching Zoe poke at the last potato in her bowl. Then the girl coughed. First it was just a tickle. Then it deepened, a harsh, dry cough that shook her small shoulders. Zoe. Diana dropped her spoon. The coughing fit worsened. Zoe grabbed at her chest, fighting for breath between spasms. She gets like this when she's very tired, Diana said quickly, standing to scoop Zoe into her arms. It's asthma. We don't have the medicine. She rocked her gently, murmuring soft reassurances, pulling a coat around her as an extra blanket. It's okay, my love. Breathe slow like this. Good, that's it. Julian stood frozen, watching. Diana hummed under her breath, stroking Zoe's damp blonde hair. Gradually the cough eased, though her breathing stayed ragged. Better? Diana asked softly. Better, Zoe rasped, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. She needs to rest, Julian said abruptly. Diana turned. We'll go. Thank you for the food. She hefted Zoe, who suddenly seemed smaller and more fragile. Where are you going? He asked. We'll find somewhere, she said. We always do. In this rain. With a sick child. She'll be fine, Diana insisted. She always is. But Julian saw the fear in her eyes. Saw how tightly she held her daughter. I need to buy food for my daughter.
Mister, I'm hungry.
And now this woman was ready to walk back into a storm with a wheezing 5-year-old. Julian raked a hand through his hair. He didn't want strangers in his house overnight. He didn't want to care. But it was already too late. You can stay tonight, he said, not quite looking at them. The guest room's clean. Diana blinked. Really? Just one night? Tomorrow you leave? Of course. Just one night. Relief flooded her face. Thank you, Julian. Thank you so much. He already regretted it. Come on. I'll show you the room. They climbed the stairs in silence. Julian opened the door to a cozy room with a queen bed and a small bathroom. Clean towels are in the closet, he said. If you need anything. We won't, Diana said quickly. You've done enough. He nodded and turned to go. Julian. He paused. Why are you doing this? She asked. He glanced at Zoe, asleep against her mother's chest, blonde curls drying around her face. Because you said you needed to buy food for your daughter, he answered simply. She said she was hungry. It was the truth. That was enough. He closed the door and went back downstairs. He washed the bowls, put away the leftovers, turned off the lights. Even after he crawled into his own bed, sleep wouldn't come. He lay staring at the ceiling. I need to buy food for my daughter. It hadn't been a plea for a handout. It was a line in the sand drawn by a mother.
Mister, I'm hungry.
3 words that had slipped under the armor he'd spent years building. Upstairs, Diana laid Zoe gently on the guest bed and lay down beside her. The mattress felt almost too soft after park benches and hard cots. Mommy, Zoe whispered in the dark. Yes, baby. Mr. Julian is nice. Diana smiled faintly, stroking her hair. He made yummy food for us, Zoe added sleepily. He did. And he let us sleep in his big house. He did. Zoe yawned. When I said I was hungry, he got sad. Diana's hand stilled. What do you mean? His eyes, Zoe murmured. They looked like yours when you're sad but trying to hide it. The child's words landed like a stone. Diana kissed her forehead. Go to sleep, my love. Tomorrow is a new day. But as she listened to Zoe's breathing deepen, she couldn't stop thinking of the man downstairs. The way he'd paused when she said, I need to buy food for my daughter. The way his face had changed when Zoe said, Mr. I'm hungry. Julian Cross was a contradiction. Cold and distant, but he had cooked soup for strangers at midnight. And Zoe was right. There was sorrow in those gray eyes. Downstairs, Julian lay awake, haunted by 2 voices. A determined one and a small trusting one. I need to buy food for my daughter.
Mister, I'm hungry.
In a few hours, he told himself, they would be gone. Life would go back to quiet, predictable, safe. He didn't yet realize nothing would be the same again. That a blonde woman and a light-eyed child had already turned his world upside down. The first rays of sun slipped through the guest room curtains, gently waking Diana. For a second, she didn't know where she was. The bed was too soft. The sheets smelled of fabric softener. No shelter noise, no street sounds. Then it all came back. The rain. The door. Julian. Diana turned. Zoe slept peacefully at her side. Blonde hair fanned over the pillow like a golden halo. Her breathing was normal. Rest had helped. The clock on the nightstand read 6:30 a.m. Early for a child, but not for a mother who'd learned to savor every quiet minute. Diana carefully slid out of bed so as not to wake Zoe, padded to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. The storm had passed. The streets glistened, but the sky was clear blue, promising a bright day. Just one night, Julian had said. Tomorrow you leave. And he was right. She couldn't take advantage of his kindness. But before they left, she wanted to do something to show she was grateful. Barefoot, she slipped from the room. The house was hushed in that special morning way. As she descended the stairs, she looked around with new eyes. In daylight, the mansion seemed even larger and emptier. Beautiful furniture, expensive art, impeccable surfaces. But no family photos, no scattered toys, no personal clutter. It looked more like a showroom than a home. In the kitchen, everything gleamed. Granite counters, high-end appliances, a magazine-worthy island, and a faint sense of coldness, like it was used only when necessary. Diana rolled up her sleeves. She started small, re-washing the already clean bowls from the night before, drying them carefully, putting them back in exactly the right places. She wiped down the counters again, straightened dish towels, moved through the space with quiet purpose. She needed to keep busy, to feel she was doing something to earn the mercy they'd been shown. In the living room, she fluffed the pillows, dusted surfaces, ran the vacuum gingerly so it wouldn't wake anyone. The house had been spotless to begin with, but Diana wanted to leave it perfect. How long had it been since she'd taken care of a real home? At the shelter, everything was temporary. Here for a few hours she felt almost anchored. Back in the kitchen, she opened the fridge. Milk, eggs, deli meat, some fruit, good ingredients chosen by a man who clearly lived alone and ate for necessity, not joy. She touched the few bills still in her pocket. Julian had refused her money, but it was hers, and she wanted to use it to say thank you. She remembered the bakery on the corner they'd passed the previous night, the scent of fresh bread lingering even through the rain. Diana scribbled a quick note and left it on the table. Be right back. Outside, the air was cool and clean after the storm. At the bakery, she bought warm rolls, golden croissants, some fruit, and 2 carefully decorated muffins. For a special breakfast? The woman at the counter asked. Something like that, Diana said, paying with her last crumpled bills. When she returned, the house was still quiet. She started a pot of coffee, set the table with the nicest plates she could find, folded napkins neatly, arranged bread in a basket, croissants on a plate, fruit on a platter. She found jam, honey, and butter in the fridge and added them. Simple things but done with care. She stepped back and looked at the table in the warm morning light. For a fleeting moment, she imagined this was her kitchen and this was her routine. The smell of coffee and fresh bread filled the room. It smelled like home. Mommy! Diana turned. Zoe stood at the doorway, hair tousled, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Good morning, my love. Sleep well. I did. Zoe sniffed the air and her face lit up. What a yummy smell. I made a special breakfast, Diana said. Zoe ran to the table, eyes wide. Wow, so much food. Is it all for us? It's for all of us. To thank Julian for being so kind. Can I have a croissant? Of course. Diana seated her and went to pour a glass of milk. When she turned back, Julian was standing at the kitchen entrance. He wore a gray t-shirt and pajama pants, hair even messier than the night before. His gaze traveled slowly over the sparkling kitchen, the set table, the steaming coffee, over mother and daughter framed by morning sunshine. Good morning, Diana said, suddenly nervous. I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to. Julian didn't answer at once. He took in the scene as though he didn't recognize his own house. The kitchen was spotless but no longer sterile. Coffee and fresh bread scented the air. The table looked like it was waiting for a family breakfast. Zoe was swinging her legs as she bit into a croissant. It was everything his house had never been. Warm, alive, lived in. You didn't have to do this, Julian said at last, his voice softer than it had been all night. I know, Diana replied quietly. It's how I say thank you. So matter of fact. As if it were only natural to tend the home of someone who had taken them in. You went out to buy bread? He asked. I did. With my own money, she added quickly. The money I offered you last night. I wanted to do something for you. It wasn't necessary, he said. It was. For me. The honesty disarmed him. He moved to the table almost cautiously and sat down, as if he wasn't sure what to do with this unfamiliar domesticity. Diana poured coffee into his cup, set a croissant on his plate, pushed the butter and jam toward him. Thoughtful, unhurried gestures, as if she'd been doing it for him for years. Thank you, he murmured. They ate quietly at first. Zoe chattered about her dreams, how comfy the bed was, how good the croissants tasted. Julian mostly listened, sipping coffee slowly. How long had it been since he'd woken to the smell of fresh food in his house? Since he'd eaten breakfast at a real table? Julian. Zoe piped up. Do you have colored pencils? He blinked. Colored pencils? I want to draw something important. Zoe, Diana cautioned. Don't bother him. It's no bother, Julian said. I think I have some in the office. I'll get them. When he left, Diana topped up the coffee and sliced an apple for Zoe, trying to understand why she felt strangely at home in this kitchen. Julian came back with a box of colored pencils and a stack of paper. He set them in front of Zoe. Will these work? Her eyes lit up. They're perfect. Thank you. She chose yellow, then red, tongue sticking out in concentration, and started drawing. Diana and Julian finished their coffee, both watching her quietly. There was something hypnotic about her focus. She draws well for her age, Julian observed. She's always loved it, Diana said. At the shelter, she drew with whatever she could find. That must have been hard, he said gently. It was, Diana admitted. But we managed. And now, he asked, what's the plan? I'm looking for a job. Any job. I just need a chance. Julian nodded thoughtfully but said nothing. Done, Zoe announced, holding up her drawing. Diana smiled. A big house, flowers, the sun in the corner, 3 figures out front. A blonde woman, a small blonde girl, and a tall, dark-haired man. All 3 were smiling wide and bright. It's our house, Zoe explained cheerfully. You, me, and Julian. All happy living together. Diana's chest tightened. My love, we're not going to live here. I know, Zoe said, already reaching for another sheet. But I can dream, right? This one is special. It's just for Julian. She drew faster this time, favoring yellow and orange. When she finished, she carried the page to him. Here, she said. This is for you to keep. Julian took the paper. It was him as seen by a 5-year-old, tall, dark hair, gray t-shirt, and he was smiling. An enormous yellow smile that took up half his face. I drew you smiling, Zoe said seriously, because I think you forgot how. No malice, no teasing. Just a plain observation of the man who'd taken them in. Julian stared at the drawing. When had he really smiled last? Do you like it? Zoe asked, uncertain at his silence. Very much, he said, clearing his throat. He folded the page carefully and slipped it into his t-shirt pocket, right over his heart. I'll keep it here. Really? You're really gonna keep it? She beamed. Really? It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever gotten. Diana watched, feeling something stir. She saw the way Julian's fingers touched the pocket, the way his face softened when Zoe smiled at him. The cold, distant man from the night before was still there, but now there was a crack, a glimpse of vulnerability. The ice was beginning to melt. Julian, Diana said quietly, thank you. For everything. For the food, the bed, your kindness. We won't forget it. He glanced from her to Zoe, who had already gone back to her pencils. It was nothing, he said. To us, it was everything. He didn't answer, but his hand drifted once more to the drawing over his heart. Well, Diana said, standing. We've stayed long enough. You've been too kind. We should go. Where will you go? He asked. We'll figure something out. We always do. Julian looked around the kitchen. The set table, the smell of coffee, the child drawing in the sunshine. For the first time in years, his house felt like a home. You don't have to rush, he said. Diana paused. What? You don't have to leave right now. You can stay for lunch. Julian, we don't want to cause more trouble. You're not trouble, he said, almost to himself. Are you sure? She asked. He glanced at Zoe, bent over another drawing full of yellow smiles. I'm sure. Gratitude, relief, and something like hope moved across Diana's face. Thank you, she whispered. Julian nodded and pushed his chair back. I'm going to take a shower. Make yourselves at home. He stepped into the hall, then turned back. Diana. Yes. The coffee was great, he said. And thank you for taking care of the house. She smiled. You're welcome. I liked it. When he was gone, Diana sat by the window. The sun climbed higher, bright and generous. The ice, she realized, was truly starting to thaw. Julian Cross was not just the closed-off man from last night. He was someone who had forgotten how to smile. And Zoe, as always, had seen it first. By noon, the kitchen smelled of garlic and herbs. Julian watched from the doorway as Diana moved around the stove. Smells good, he said. It's just simple food, she replied, turning chicken in the pan. Nothing fancy. But he could see the difference. Every motion was purposeful. Each spice added with care. She wasn't just cooking. She was pouring love into the meal. Can I help? He asked. She looked up surprised. Do you know how to cook? The basics. Nothing that smells like this. Then you can set the table. Plates, napkins, glasses. He went for the cabinet and without thinking chose the good plates again. 40 minutes later, The house was steeped in warmth and the rich scent of home cooking. On the table, golden juicy chicken, brightly colored sautéed vegetables, fluffy rice, creamy beans. "It's ready," Diana said, removing an apron she'd found. They sat. Zoe's legs swung under her chair. "You can eat," Diana urged, serving Zoe first. Julian cut a piece of chicken and tasted it, chewing slowly. "It tastes like," he trailed off, surprised by the lump in his throat. "Home," he finished. "Like when my mother cooked. When I was a kid." He took another bite, more carefully this time. "I haven't tasted this in years." Relief washed over Diana. "Is it really good?" she asked softly. "It's incredible. Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My mom taught me," she said. "She used to say food made with care tastes different." She was right. They ate in a warm, companionable silence. Zoe commented on how sweet the carrots were, how soft the chicken was. Julian listened, a faint, almost unfamiliar smile occasionally tugging at his mouth. The house felt different now. It wasn't just occupied, it felt lived in. The smells, the quiet voices, the sense that these rooms finally had a purpose beyond existing. "Diana," Julian said as they were finishing, "can I ask something?" "Of course. How did you end up at the shelter?" She set down her fork and stared briefly at her plate. "I used to work as a waitress," she began. "Small place but a good job. Fair boss, kind customers. I could pay the rent, buy food, clothes for Zoe." "What happened?" "The restaurant went under," she said simply. "The pandemic made everything harder. Fewer customers. More bills." He tried to hold on, but he had to close. Julian waited. "I looked for other work. Sent resumes, went to interviews." She gave a small, helpless shrug. "Nobody wants to hire a woman with a little kid." "Why not?" he asked, though he already knew. "They think I'll miss work when she's sick. That I won't be dedicated enough." She glanced at Zoe playing with the last grains of rice. "And maybe they're right. If she needs me, I'll drop everything." "That isn't wrong," he said quietly. "I know. But employers don't see it that way." She drew a breath. "I burned through my savings looking for work. When I couldn't pay the rent, the landlord evicted us." "And then the shelter," he said. "Yes. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I got back on my feet. But weeks turned into months, and yesterday they said they couldn't keep us." There was no self-pity in her tone. Just worn-out facts. "And now?" he asked. She squared her shoulders. "Now I keep looking. Something will come up." "Are you sure?" he asked. "I have to be," she said. Her eyes met his. "I don't want pity, Julian. Not from you or anyone. Just a chance." He saw her clearly then. A woman who had lost almost everything but not her dignity. A mother who put her child first, who turned a stranger's kitchen into a home in a few quiet hours. "You never thought of giving up?" he asked. "Every day," she admitted. "But then I look at her and remember I can't. She needs me standing, fighting. She needs to see it's possible to start over. Especially when it feels impossible." "What kind of work are you looking for?" he asked. "Anything. Waitress, cashier, cleaner, saleswoman. I've done customer service. I can cook. I'm not afraid of hard work." "And Zoe?" he asked. "Who will watch her?" "There's a public daycare nearby," she said. "If I find something around here, she can stay there during the day." Julian nodded slowly. She had thought everything through. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was building a plan. "Can I have more?" Zoe asked, waving her empty plate. "Of course, my love." Diana served her another portion, then held the spoon toward Julian. "More?" "Yes, please," he said. "It's really, really good." They continued eating, a new understanding hanging in the air. Diana had bared her story and asked for nothing. "You know," Julian said when the plates were mostly cleared, "it's been a long time since I've had a meal like this." "Like what?" she asked. "Made with care. With someone to talk to while I eat." He glanced around. "This house has always been very quiet." "And you like the quiet?" she asked. "I thought I did," he admitted. "It was safer." He hesitated. "Now I'm not so sure." "Sometimes it's good not to know," she said, smiling. "Leaves room to discover new things." "Like what?" he asked. Like the taste of food that hugs you, she said. He let out a laugh, low and rusty, as if it hadn't been used in years. Food that hugs you? Food made with love, she said. That warms you from the inside. That feels like home. Your food does that, he said. Color rose in her cheeks. Thank you. When Zoe finished and returned to her drawings, Diana started stacking plates. Julian stopped her. Leave it, he said. You cooked. I'll wash. You don't have to. Yes, I do, he insisted. It's only fair. He collected dishes and moved to the sink. Diana watched, seeing the same efficiency in his movements, this time tinged with something softer. Julian, she said as he dried the last plate. Yes. Thank you. For listening. For not judging. Thank you, he replied. For cooking. For trusting me with your story. They held each other's gaze a moment, something unspoken forming between them. Mommy, can I play outside? Zoe asked, pointing at the backyard through the window. Diana looked to Julian, who nodded. Yes, but stay in the yard, she said. Zoe tore outside, delighted with the stretch of green. She's special, Julian said quietly, watching her through the glass. She is, Diana agreed. She's stronger than she knows. She teaches me a lot. What does she teach you? He asked. That it's possible to be happy even when things are hard. That tomorrow can be better than today. Julian watched Zoe chasing a yellow butterfly that had landed nearby. She didn't try to catch it, just watched it dance. Diana, he said suddenly. Yes. You don't have to leave today. She stared at him. What? You can stay another day. Until you figure things out a bit more. Julian, I can't keep relying on your generosity. It's not generosity, he said slowly. It's just being human. They stood side by side, watching Zoe in the sun. Thank you, Diana whispered. For the food, he said. For the story. For all of this. You're welcome, she said. But they both knew it meant far more. Late afternoon bathed the living room in golden light. From the kitchen, Diana heard laughter. Zoe's clear giggles and Julian's quieter responses. She peeked around the doorway. Zoe sat on the big sofa surrounded by drawings, explaining each one. Julian lounged in an armchair with a book open, but his attention was clearly on her. This is you driving a car, Zoe said, holding up a drawing. And this is me next to you. We're going somewhere fun. Where? He asked, leaning in. Somewhere with ice cream. Every family needs to go eat ice cream together. The word family hung between them. And your mom? Julian asked. Where is she? Oh, she's at home making yummy food for us for when we get back, Zoe said, as if that were obvious. Julian smiled without realizing it. Can I keep this one too? He asked. You can, she said proudly. Are you collecting my drawings? I am. They're special. Zoe hopped off the sofa and padded to his chair. Can I sit here with you? She asked, pointing at the armrest. He hesitated only a second. Yes, you can. She scrambled up onto the arm and swung her legs. For a few minutes they were quiet, each pretending to focus on their own thoughts. Julian held his book, but all his attention was on the small warmth beside him. Julian, Zoe said softly. Yes. Can I tell you a secret? He closed the book. You can. She glanced around dramatically, then leaned closer. I always wanted a daddy, she whispered. The words were simple and devastating. You did? He asked gently. Uh-huh. Someone to call me little one. Someone to protect me and teach me things. She looked down at her feet. The other kids at the shelter had daddies. I only had mommy. Your mom takes very good care of you, he said. She does. She's the best. But sometimes, she searched for the right phrase. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have a daddy too. And what do you imagine? He asked. He'd be kind like you, she said. He'd make yummy food sometimes and let me draw on the table. And when I was scared, he would say everything was okay. What are you scared of? Julian asked quietly. The dark. Not having a place to live. Mommy being sad. Her blue eyes, too serious for 5, lifted to his. But with you I don't feel like that, she said. Sometimes it feels like you're I don't know, like you could be my daddy. Like we're a real family. Her words hit him like a blow. He looked at her and felt something pure and unfamiliar rise in him. Love stripped of romance or obligation. Just the instinct to protect this small, brave person. Zoe, he began, unsure what to say. I know you're not my real daddy, she rushed to add. Mommy said you're just being kind. She hesitated. But you could be. If you wanted. Julian's eyes burned. There was so much hope in her voice. Come here, he said softly, opening his arms. She slid off the armrest and curled into his lap, head on his shoulder. She smelled like soap and crayons. Julian wrapped his arms around her carefully. Would you call me little one? She whispered. I would, he answered, his voice rougher than usual. And would you protect me always? Yes, he said. Always. And teach me things? Everything I know. She sighed contentedly and nestled closer. Okay then. Even if it's just for today. A tear slipped down his face. From the doorway, Diana watched the words, I'm making a snack, dying on her tongue. The sight of her daughter safe in Julian's arms struck her like a physical thing. He held Zoe as if she were the most precious being on earth. And Zoe, with total trust, had given him that place. Love was being born before her eyes. Mommy! Zoe spotted her and waved. Look, Julian let me sit on his lap. I see that, Diana said, walking in. What are you two talking about? About what it'd be like to have a daddy, Zoe answered, as direct as ever. Diana's heart skipped. She met Julian's eyes, seeing the flush on his cheeks. Really? She asked lightly. Julian said he'd call me little one and always protect me, Zoe added. Diana looked at Julian and saw seriousness, not empty promises. That's nice, she said softly. You're not mad? Zoe asked, suddenly unsure. You don't like when I talk about having a daddy. I don't get mad, Diana said, moving closer and sitting on the sofa near them. I get sad sometimes because I can't give you that. But now you can, Zoe said, perfectly logical. Julian's here. Diana and Julian exchanged a look over her head. The air felt charged. Things aren't that simple, little one, Julian said gently, for the first time using the nickname. Zoe sat up, eyes shining. You called me little one. I did, he said. I like it. Will you always call me that? He glanced at Diana. She gave the smallest nod. I will, he said. Zoe sighed, happy, and snuggled back. Julian, Diana said quietly. Thank you. For what? He asked. For treating her like she's special. She is special, he replied. In that golden light, the three of them looked exactly like Zoe's drawings. A family, imperfect, maybe, but real. The next morning, Diana woke with a knot in her chest. She had slept deeply for the first time in months, but security felt dangerous. She couldn't let herself or Zoe get too used to this. She found Julian in the kitchen with coffee, scrolling through his phone. Good morning, he said, looking up. His eyes held a new warmth since yesterday afternoon, since Zoe had curled into his arms and called him her almost daddy. Good morning, she replied, pouring herself coffee. She sat, hands trembling slightly around the cup. Julian, I need to tell you something. He set his phone down, giving her his full attention. Last night after Zoe fell asleep, I made some calls, she said. Places looking for help. I explained my situation, asked if they had anything. He nodded slowly, though something flickered in his eyes. A cleaning company downtown said they can hire me, she continued, as a cleaner for some offices. It's not much, but it's something. A start. That's good, he said. But his voice didn't sound entirely convinced. It sounded like goodbye. They want me to start today, she said. The words dropped between them like a stone. Do you want to? He asked quietly. She swallowed. The question was heavier than it sounded. I need to, she said. Because my daughter needs to see me standing on my own 2 feet. The simple sentence held everything. Dignity, example, the refusal to live forever on someone else's kindness. Julian nodded. He understood, even as a part of him wanted to ask her to stay just one more day. One more week. Forever. Where will you live? He asked. There's a hostel downtown, she said. Temporary, until I can save for a room. Silence hung between them. The idea of Diana and Zoe in a hostel after seeing them safe here made his stomach twist. Are you sure this is what you want? He asked. She hesitated a heartbeat too long. This is what I have to do, she repeated at last. They finished their coffee in heavy quiet. Diana went upstairs to wake Zoe and explain. Julian stared out at the yard where she'd chased butterflies the day before. When they came back down, Zoe's eyes were red. She clutched one of her drawings tightly. Are you going to work today, Mommy? She asked in a small voice. I am, Diana said. It's a new job. And am I going with you? No, baby. You're going to daycare. Remember we talked about it. Zoe nodded, but fear shone in her eyes. Julian, she asked, tugging his shirt. He knelt to her level. Are we really leaving? She whispered. Your mom got a job, he said. That's a good thing. But I like it here, she said. I like you. The words punched through him. I like you too, little one, he said, voice raw. Then why can't we stay? He glanced at Diana and saw the war inside her. Love of this house and man against the iron need to stand on her own. Sometimes people have to leave even when they don't want to, he said gently. Zoe flung her arms around his neck. Can I visit you? She asked into his shoulder. He looked at Diana. Hope lived in her eyes too, despite herself. Of course, he said. You can. Diana shouldered their single-worn backpack, everything they owned, and checked for Zoe's drawings and the colored pencils Julian had given her. I think that's it, she said. Julian looked at the backpack, then at the woman and child who had filled his house with life in just days. Are you sure you don't want to stay a few more days? He asked. Just until you're more settled? Julian, you've already done so much, she said. I can't keep leaning on you. I need to show my daughter I can take care of her myself. Her posture said the decision was final. Then I'll drive you, he said. To the company. To daycare. You don't have to, she said. Yes, I do, he replied. At least this. The drive downtown felt endless. Zoe stared out the window, hugging her drawing. Diana sat stiffly, hands knotted in her lap. Julian stopped first at the cleaning company, a modest building. Thank you, Diana said, voice unsteady. For everything. You don't have to thank me, he said automatically. Yes, I do, she insisted. You gave us more than food and shelter. You gave us hope. He couldn't reply. He just nodded. When she went inside, he stayed in the car with Zoe. Is Mommy going to be okay? She asked quietly. She will, he said. She's strong. And you? She asked. Will you be okay all alone in the big house? The question stunned him. He met her gaze in the rearview mirror and lied. I'll be fine, he said. 15 minutes later, Diana returned in a pale blue uniform, carrying a bag of supplies. She looked smaller somehow but determined. You got it? He asked. I start today, she said. They drove to the daycare, a cheerful building with drawings on the walls. It was kind, modest, safe, but to Julian it still felt like leaving her in another world. Zoe hugged him hard at the gate. Don't forget me, she whispered. Never, little one, he said, his throat tight. He walked with Diana to the office building where she would clean. Glass doors, people in suits coming and going, no one noticing the woman in a cleaner's uniform. This is it, she said on the sidewalk. You think I believe you're just stubborn? He asked. She gave a tired smile. A little. I think you're brave, he said. Her smile turned soft and sad. Thank you. For understanding. If you need anything. I know, she said. Thank you. He watched until the elevator doors closed on her. The drive home felt wrong. The car seemed too spacious, the streets too empty. When he opened his front door, silence swallowed him. No laughter. No teeny footsteps. No humming in the kitchen. He walked through room after room. The kitchen no longer smelled of coffee. The table held no colored pencils. The sofa cushions were neatly arranged, depressingly untouched. On a bookshelf he saw a frame drawing, Zoe's picture of him with a huge yellow smile. He picked it up. When had he ever looked like that? He went upstairs to the guest room. The bed was made, but their scent still clung faintly to the air. He sat on the edge and felt more alone than he had in years. In just 3 days, they'd changed everything. Filled the house with color, movement, food, and feeling. With love. Now they were gone. Only the echo remained. He poured himself a whiskey in the living room, even though it was barely noon, and sank into the armchair where Zoe had curled up. The silence pressed in from every side. Before, the silence had shielded him. Now it felt like an enemy. Before, the silence protected me, he said aloud just to hear a voice. Now it hurts me. His words bounced weakly off the walls, emphasizing the emptiness. He looked again at Zoe's drawing. A smiling man. A man a 5-year-old believed could learn to smile again. His phone rang. Work. Julian, we have a meeting at 3, a voice said. Are you coming? He checked the time. 2:30. No, he said. What do you mean, no? I'm not coming. Cancel it, he replied and hung up. He sat in the armchair, clutching the drawing, letting the silence close around him. For the first time, he hated it. 3 days crawled by. He tried to slip back into his old schedule: work, eat, sleep. But it was like walking through someone else's life. Food had no flavor. Work felt hollow. The house was just square footage around a man going through motions. On the 4th morning, he woke with the same question burning in his chest. What was he doing? He showered, dressed, grabbed his keys. But instead of heading for the freeway, he turned toward downtown. He needed to see them. At the commercial building where the cleaning company had placed Diana, he went to the 3rd floor. The new cleaner, Diana? He asked the receptionist. Down the hall, last office, she said. You'll hear the vacuum. He walked the quiet corridor until he heard the low hum. The office door stood slightly ajar. Diana, in the blue uniform, had her back to him, slowly vacuuming the carpet. The sight made his chest tighten, not in pity but in respect. She was doing exactly what she'd said she would. Working, rebuilding, not giving up. Diana, he said, knocking lightly on the frame. She jumped and switched off the vacuum. Julian, she said, startled. What are you doing here? Did something happen? Yes, he said simply. Something did. She wound the vacuum cord nervously. What? He took a breath. On the drive, he'd rehearsed the speech. Now the words felt too small, but he said them anyway. You knocking on my door was the best thing that's ever happened to me, he began. When you left, I missed you. And you only miss something when it was good while it was there. His voice stayed even, but emotion threaded through every syllable. Diana folded her arms across her chest, a shield. Julian, please, he said quietly. Let me finish. She nodded. I lived alone for years, he said. I thought that was the only way. Safe, predictable. Then you came and changed everything. Not just the house. He took a step closer. You changed me. We can't just, she started. Why not? He interrupted. Because it's not real, she said. You feel this way now, but it'll pass. Feelings always do. When that happens, where will we be? My daughter can't go through that again. You're right, he said. She can't. She relaxed a little, assuming he'd understood. That's why I want it to be real, he said. She stared. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want you as guests, he said. I want you as family. Not temporary. Not charity. Family. The word seemed to echo off the office walls. You don't know what you're saying, she whispered. Yes, he said. For the first time I do. You barely know us, she protested. I know enough, he replied, another step closer. I know you make coffee with care. You clean a stranger's house like it's your own. You love your daughter more than your own life. You're brave enough to knock on a stranger's door when you're desperate. That's not how things work, she said shakily. You can't just decide to have a family. Why not? He asked again. Because. She groped for reasons, but they dissolved under his intensity. He closed the distance between them. Up close, he saw the fatigue in her eyes, and behind it, something else. Hope straining against fear. Diana, he said. If you come back, it's as family. I'm done with an empty house and guests who vanish. I want a family. And if it doesn't work? She asked hoarsely. And if it does? He countered. She searched his face. This wasn't loneliness talking. It was conviction. My daughter can't live like a guest, she said, testing him. She won't, he replied. She'll live as a daughter. The word stumbled out of him, but the moment it did, he knew it was true. Tears pricked her eyes. Julian, I never believed in love, he said quietly, cutting her off. I thought it was weakness. Something for movies, not for people like me. He took her hand, roughened by work but steady. I was wrong. You showed me love is strength. It's a mother banging on a stranger's door for her hungry child. It's taking the first job you can find so your daughter sees you stand on your own. A tear slid down her cheek. It's a 5-year-old girl who believes a bitter man can learn to smile again, he finished. I want to try. With you. Try what? She whispered. To be a family. To be the father Zoe always wanted. To be the man you deserve. To be actually happy. She looked at their joined hands, the size difference, the contrast between her calluses and his careful grip. And if you get tired of us? She asked. Of me. He smiled faintly. Zoe will never tire of me. She already loves me. And you? She bit her lip. I've grown attached to you too, she admitted. Then why not try? He asked. She slipped her hand free and walked to the window. Below, life rushed by. Strangers with places to go, problems to solve. Where's Zoe now? He asked. Daycare, she said. Until 6. Can we pick her up together? He asked. She turned. His eyes were clear, his stance decided. A man who had made up his mind. Julian, this is crazy, she said. It is, he agreed. The best kind of crazy I've ever had. They stood in charged silence. If it goes wrong, she began. It won't, he said. You can't know that. I know I've never wanted anything this much, he said. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, a decision had settled there. If we're coming back, it has to be as family, she said. My daughter can't live as a guest. She'll be my daughter too, he said steadily. If she wants that. And me? She asked. You'll be my partner, he said. My companion. The woman who showed me you can start over at 40. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, he whispered. But I'm more afraid of letting you walk away again. She thought of Zoe in Julian's house, shining in a way she hadn't at the shelter. She thought of how safe her daughter had looked in his arms. And of herself feeling useful in his kitchen, his home. Zoe always wanted a dad, she said. And I always wanted a family. I just didn't know. Then let's try, he said. Together, she said, her voice finally steady. We try together. A real full smile broke across his face, the kind Zoe had drawn for him in bright yellow. Together, he repeated. They hugged in the middle of the little office, between buckets and vacuum cleaners. It wasn't romantic in the traditional sense, but it was real. It was the moment they chose courage over fear. Should we go get our daughter? Julian asked, savoring the word our. Diana smiled at the sound of it. Let's go get our daughter. Weeks later, the house had a rhythm. It wasn't perfect, there were arguments about screen time, bedtime, chores, but it was theirs. Diana woke early to make breakfast for 3. Julian had insisted she didn't need to keep cleaning offices, but she still wanted to contribute. So she cooked, ran the house, and gradually began helping him with some of his business paperwork. Zoe took to her new life like she'd been born for it. She drew at the living room table, thundered down the hallways, and every night wedged herself between them on the big sofa for a movie. One Saturday, Julian woke with a smile, something that had become almost normal. He found Diana at the stove making pancakes. Zoe perched on a stool at the island in pajamas, feet swinging. Good morning, family, he said, kissing the top of Zoe's head and brushing a gentle kiss across Diana's lips. Good morning, Diana replied, still a little amazed at how natural it all felt. Julian, can you help me with something after breakfast? Zoe asked. Of course, little one. What is it? I want to draw our family, she said. But I don't know how to draw happiness. He chuckled. What do you mean? Everyone's always smiling in my drawings, she explained. But I want to draw the happiness that's in here. She tapped her chest. The kind you feel but can't see. Diana paused over the pan, moved by her daughter's words. I'll think about how to help with that, Julian said, booping her nose. After breakfast, he grabbed his keys. Want to go for a ride? He asked. Where? Diana asked. It's a surprise. I love surprises, Zoe yelled, clapping. They drove about 15 minutes to a commercial street. Julian parked in front of a small building with its windows covered in brown paper. What is this? Diana asked as he unlocked the door with a key from his pocket. Come and see, he said. He flipped on the lights. Diana gasped. It was a small restaurant, 15 tables with lightwood tops, comfortable chairs, an open kitchen framed by a counter, warm yellow walls, hanging plants near the front windows. On the back wall, a covered sign. Julian, what is this? She asked, voice trembling. This restaurant is yours, he said simply. She stood frozen in the middle of the room. What do you mean mine? You cook with soul, he said, coming closer. The world needs that. You told me how much you loved working in a restaurant, watching people happy over food you made. I can't accept this, she whispered. It's not charity, he said quickly. It's an investment. I believe in you, in your food, in what you can do here. Zoe darted between tables, exploring. Mommy, look how cool. Are you gonna cook here? Julian, this must have cost a fortune, Diana said. Don't think about the money, he answered. Think about making food that hugs people. He went to the back wall and pulled the cloth away from the sign. Diana read aloud, her voice cracking. Heart on the table. Below in smaller letters, real food. Love served warm. She clapped a hand over her mouth as tears welled. Do you like the name? Julian asked, suddenly anxious. I went through a lot of options, but this one felt like you. Like how you cook. She couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming. Why are you crying? Zoe asked, worried. Happy tears, baby, Diana managed. Oh good, Zoe said in relief. I thought you didn't like it. Julian took Diana's hands. I know it's a lot, he said. And I know you like doing everything yourself. But let me help. Let me be part of your dreams too. She looked around again and saw it. Tables full of strangers who would become regulars. Steam from the open kitchen. Laughter. Conversations over food that tasted like home. It's perfect, she whispered. So you accept? He asked. I accept, she said. On one condition. Name it. You'll be my real partner, she said. Not a silent investor. We do this together. Partner, he repeated. Together. Zoe had found some stray colored pencils and was already drawing. What are you doing, little one? Julian asked. I'm drawing what happiness looks like on the inside, she said, pointing at her chest. I figured out how. How, he asked. You just draw people taking care of each other, she said. Diana and Julian exchanged a look. Sometimes Zoe's clarity stunned them. Can I suggest some things for the menu? Julian asked. Of course. That soup you made the first night, he said immediately. The chicken with vegetables that tasted like home. The breakfast you made that morning. You want breakfast on the menu? She asked, laughing through her tears. Why not? Breakfast from the heart. Family pancakes. Coffee that hugs. You're serious? Completely. Food made with love doesn't care what time it is. Diana walked behind the counter and ran her hand along the surface. She could see herself there, ladling soup, plating chicken, pouring coffee that smelled like comfort. When can we open? She asked. Whenever you're ready, he said. We'll need to hire staff, test recipes, make some tweaks. A month or two. It'll be a lot of work, she said. We can handle it, he said. The three of us. The three of us, she repeated, smiling. Zoe will be our dessert consultant, he added. She knows her sweets. That's right, Zoe declared. I know lots about sweets. Diana laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. It wasn't just her dream coming alive. It was the chance to build something together. You two are crazy, she said. And you love us anyway, Julian replied, pulling her into a hug. I do, she said. Dad. Zoe suddenly shouted. Julian turned instinctively, then froze. Zoe had never called him that before. It had always been Julian. Sometimes Mr. Julian. Dad, come see my new drawing, she repeated, waving him over. He stood motionless for a second, then walked slowly to her, eyes shining. You called me Dad, he said, voice unsteady. Because you are, she said like it was the simplest thing in the world. The word struck him like lightning. He knelt and hugged her tightly, blinking back tears. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure, she said. You take care of me. You play with me. You protect me. That's what dads do, right? He nodded, unable to speak. And now you gave Mommy a restaurant, she added. That's a very dad thing. He laughed thickly. It is. Only dads do important things like that for the family. He looked up at Diana, standing by the kitchen, eyes just as wet as his. You're going to have the best of everything, he told Zoe, voice firm. I promise. I already do, she said, settling into his lap. I have you and Mommy. Diana joined their hug, wrapping her arms around both of them. Look at my drawing, Zoe said, holding up her paper. 3 figures holding hands, smiling. Around them little hearts floated like bubbles. This is what happiness looks like, she explained. It comes out of our hearts and floats around so everyone can see. Diana looked at the drawing, then at the small restaurant, then at the man holding her daughter. Zoe was right. Happiness was there. Visible in their smiles, in their embrace, in the space around them brimming with possibility. This was more than a restaurant, Diana realized. It was a future. A place to grow and work and love together. Do you know what this means? She asked. What? Julian and Zoe said at the same time. It means we'll have to learn to make the most delicious food in town. That's easy, Zoe said confidently. Mommy already knows how to cook with her heart. Julian smiled, eyes still damp. And now she can teach everyone. Diana looked at them. The little girl curled in the lap of the man who had become her father, both gazing at her with love so big it almost hurt. Now they were a family. Not because they had to be, but because they had chosen to be. Heart on the table, she said aloud, tasting the name. Do you really like it? Julian asked. I love it, she said. It's perfect. And it was. Because this restaurant wouldn't just serve food. It would serve love. It would serve hope. It would stand as proof that families can be born in unexpected ways. And that real love, when you finally taste it, always tastes like home.